know, but it's there.
And the order of meeting will be that this. Ready? Ready? Good. Good evening. I call this meeting of the Bastrop Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The following agenda items are presented for discussion and consideration for submission on the agenda for the regular board meeting to be held on Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. No action will be taken at this meeting. Mr. Edwards, will you walk us through the agenda, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As you can see on the agenda in front of you, what we'll do is we'll do our general Pledge of Allegiance, honor the Texas flag, and do our opening prayer that evening. Jason Wyatt, from the student pastor from River Valley, will do our opening prayer. We'll move into our student speaker as we customarily do, and it'll be on self-discipline.
Yes, sir.
We look forward to hearing our students. That's always fun.
As you can see on the agenda in front of you, what we'll do is we'll do our general Pledge of Allegiance, honor the Texas flag, and do our opening prayer that evening. Jason Wyatt, from the student pastor from River Valley.
That's how it's.
It'll be on self-discipline. We look forward to hearing our students. That's always fun.
All right. Now you don't have to hear me twice. Once is plenty, right? Okay. So then we'll move into our recognition portion of the evening. We'll honor our high school choir and band from Cedar Creek, our Bastrop Middle School choir and band, and Bastrop High School band. Chico Portillo will introduce our directors, and we'll get to join in honoring them for their accolades. From there, we'll move into our Bastrop Area Livestock Show winners, our first robotic state competition winners from Bastrop and Cedar Creek, Skills USA, our HOSA state champ competition, and our FFA area state competition. And then our presenter for that will be Amanda Brantley and the appropriate sponsors, and she's our Director of College and Career and Military Readiness. Then we'll have our open forum session, and then we'll move into our budget update. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to do the presentation this evening more in a workshop format if you have questions. What I would say as Dina gets ready to do her presentation is, as we all know, as board members and cabinet, when we're in a legislative session, the numbers roll out later. So what you're going to get today is what we know as of today. And there's no legislation for us to plan off at this point, but you'll see our revenues, the expenditures that we're anticipating, and kind of how we come about making the budget. So, Ms. Edgar, thank you.
Is this on? Okay. Good evening, everyone. We haven't done these in forever. I'm going to run you through our slide deck for the budget development for 23-24. And like Barry said, there's not a whole lot of new information right now, but through what we know. With how we're ending that's shaping up. We'll move on to new budget assumptions and consideration as we continue to monitor the legislation in and out.
It is. Give us just 1 second. I'll either hand you my mic. There we go.
All right. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We'll take a look at how we're ending our current fiscal year and how that's shaping up. Then we'll move into new budget assumptions and considerations as we continue to monitor the legislative session, and then we'll conclude with some upcoming actions. So similar to last year, one of the most significant factors impacting our budget this year is average daily attendance. So as you know, ADA is one of the most sensitive and significant factors in the state funding formulas, and we continue to average below pre-COVID levels. I will say that we did have a little bit of recovery this year over the prior year, and that's due to our attendance initiatives. So we're currently averaging around 92%, and that's, if you can see the red line, it's really orange, but it looks right up there. And that's this year compared to pre-COVID levels, and that's the upper line in purple. So we are at 92% now. Our pre-COVID levels are 94%. Most school districts are experiencing the same phenomenon. I actually had an opportunity to sit next to Elgin ISD CFO at a recent session, and she indicated that her average daily attendance is 90%, so that's kind of where we were last year. So at least we do have the 2% more, which is great. Okay, so moving into the next slide, the left column is your prior year actuals. The middle column is our current budgeted numbers, and then the last column on the right is where we think we're going to end the year. So as we roll into the year-end status, we're seeing tax collections coming in a little bit lower than budgeted, but the corresponding decrease in state aid is being offset by increased ADA. Now, I know you just heard me say our ADA is low. So we anticipated when we entered the budget process this year that our ADA would not recover. So we budgeted a very conservative ADA number. ADA is up over what we budgeted, but it's still under those pre-COVID levels. So it hasn't made a full recovery. Our interest earnings are up because we're seeing those almost 5% where we were like sub 1% previously. And then we're seeing some savings on the expenditure side. So we're currently anticipating to end the year with an increase of about $1.2 million to fund balance, which is just above 90 days. And as you know, that's best practice. I know $1.2 million may seem like a large number, significant chunk of change, but when you put things in perspective, 1.2 million is really only 1% of what we're spending. So you really don't want to be any lower than that because you run the risk of overspending your budget.
Where are we, in the salaries, we're reducing those by $2 million? Where's those savings coming from?
There is some savings in salaries, yes. And then there's some on the operating side as well. And some of this is due to, we have the grants that we're still using, so we move things over to a grant, we do expenditure transfers, and, things are moving around a lot. And you'll see in our final amendment when we bring that, that'll all be trued up and a lot of movements. But this is where we think
But to
we're
help
at.
clarify, Mr. Dillon, it's not anything to do with teacher raises, salaries that way. It's savings because we were able to use the ESSER funds she talked about to pay for some of those positions. And then we had some vacant positions, unfortunately, this year
Yeah.
still. And so that's where you're seeing that difference. It's those things put together. We couldn't have anticipated this kind of.
Yeah, and I will say there's a lot of special education positions that are not filled, and then we're moving those expenditures into contracted services. So, there's savings in payroll, but then the contracted services are higher. Okay, this is not what this slide's supposed to look like, but we'll run it through anyway. Moving into next year, we're only modeling current law at this time, so enrollment and ADA growth are set at 3.3%. We did receive property values from the CAD last week, and that year over year from April to April growth is almost at 12%. This is all supposed to be in alignment over here. We'll make sure that gets corrected for the board meeting. And I thought we looked at this beforehand, but no, I don't know what happened. Yeah. Okay. So if no changes are made to the current session, we could only expect about $5.8 million year over year. And again, I know that may sound like a substantial increase from budget year over year, but really based on staffing formulas, the new positions that we need will come up to about 5.7 million. So that doesn't leave much room for anything else under current law. So we're monitoring the many variables that can change outcomes and influence budget decisions. We talked about ADA earlier. So every 50 students in ADA is $340,000. So 300 students would be an additional $2 million. 300 students would be a 2.5% increase to our current ADA levels, which is just a little bit above pre-COVID levels. So that's about 94.5 would put us at attendance rate, which isn't really unreasonable. So we're also hearing discussions of a $90 increase to the basic allotment, which, if you recall, we would need $915 increase to just keep up with inflation since 2019. So this $90 increase would yield us about $1.5 million. Property value growth, tax compression, any new homestead increases, or caps to the annual growth factor will impact our tax rate. We really won't have probably an answer to what that's going to look like until about August. So other considerations that need to be balanced with any new revenues would be our priority teacher pay and compensation, including substitute pay increase. Of course, our new campuses, the overhead on that, new positions, which we talked about, inflation, and then our in-house transition plan, which we're going to talk about a little bit later this evening. Okay, moving on to some bills on the move, which are probably changing as we speak. But House Bill 100 provides that $90 increase to the basic allotment. It also changes some special funding elements from attendance-based to enrollment-based. There's some minor updates to special ed, transportation, and instructional materials. And then it creates some new allotments, including a fine arts allotment. And then yesterday, I just heard about a new allotment. I can't remember what it is, but so they're talking about these moving money to allotments, which, you know, that's great, it's new money, but when they move it to allotments, they are telling us how to spend that money. Versus if they move it to the basic allotment, then we have the ability to push that money to where our needs are, where we're seeing our needs in the district. So it's a little bit of, you know, tying our hands behind our back a little bit, because they're telling us how to spend it. Senate Bill 8 is your voucher bill. And that was voted out of the Senate, but it still has to go to the House. Senate Bill 9, you probably heard about this one. It provides the one-time salary increase of $2K for teachers with districts with enrollment over 20,000 and $6,000 for teachers with districts with enrollment under $20,000. So for us, our teachers would get that $6,000 one-time increase just for 23-24 only. This also provides some assistance with our retiree hires to fill in those vacant positions. That's currently costing us about $200,000 annually, so some assistance with that. And of course, these are only 3, you know, of the very many bills that are being negotiated right now.
And as you look at that 23-24, in our case, where we'd get $6,000 for teacher salaries because we're under 20,000 students, the problem with that is, and I want to repeat it again, it's a one-time payment. So they get that for 1 year. And so then the district is left to say, we can't afford it in the future, or somehow we have to come up to keep them whole. And so it's really a difficult proposition. It looks good up there, but just, it's not sustainable the way it's currently written.
Yeah, and it's a Band-Aid on the fact as well, that it's, we know there's 2 years.
That-
So
that's right.
Definitely not going to be following, so it'll be $6 grand, and not the next year.
Exactly. Right, because the legislature meets every, but 2
Wouldn't
years.
that cost us approximately $5 million or so to try to make up the difference the following year? $6 grand per teacher?
We've actually done that calculation.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
I don't have it off the top of my, I do have that calc, though. But, you know, you could elect to not continue it.
Yeah.
The other piece that's hard is when you start paying our teachers more, everybody else wants more. Your counselors, your other teachers, they'll be making more than some other leadership positions. So we have to look at that as well, because we have to keep it balanced. So it's not just teachers, it's everybody else on the scale.
And my thought on this one time is that they're probably using federal COVID dollars because they can't sustain it. So it's just that one time, and then, you know, it goes back to, it's kind of like what we were doing with ESSER. Okay.
And again, it is early, we know that, There's a lot going on. We'll see how it starts to flesh out this next month, is when they really start actually voting and getting things taken care of, so we'll see. But I think it's gonna be a late year, to be honest. I think we're not gonna hear anything till June.
I have a quick question about the attendance. I thought there was conversation about taking away ADA with regards to how they reimburse school districts.
So there's conversation about moving from ADA to enrollment, which would be very favorable for us because we're a fast growth district. What Dina mentioned in a previous slide is they're starting to do that, but they're just tinkering with it. They're doing it only in certain programs. You're going to go back to that slide, Dina?
Yeah, where's the, I'm trying to, no. Yeah, it's this one, it's right here. So these special allotments that they're talking about moving from attendance-based to enrollment-based, but it's only certain components in the funding formulas, and it's not our big ADA number. So it will have an impact, just minor.
But so then, for every, just following the idea across, for every student that joins the fine arts, and they're a part of that allotment, the enrollment would drive that funding, just for that allotment. The way I understand it right now, you know.
They're talking about bilingual as well, and CTE.
So instead of them having average daily attendance to fund them, it would be based on the enrollment of the bilingual program in that example. And again, it's early, but that's to help you understand. So they're shifting to enrollment in pieces, I think, to see how it plays out. I can't anticipate what they're going to do, but no, I don't anticipate that. Do you, Dina? Have you heard anything from your organizations? No.
Do we know what you said 92%, 2% shy of pre-COVID? Do we know why? What's the difference?
No, I don't have a complete explanation
I think
for
it's
you.
COVID. I think it's just people never really got out of COVID mode. Because we're seeing this statewide. They actually talked about a hold harmless again this year. Now, it didn't get any traction, but because it's so widespread, we're all low on ADA.
research, but that people reevaluated their lives during COVID, and so whether it was, so taking kids out of school or letting them stay home for a mental health day or whatever became more important than, going to school or going to work. Because you saw the same kind of, reduction of people going to work, right? Or might take off more, and it was some of that, like, you have to appreciate life sort of, philosophy, and, but I don't know if that's just what.
Some people theorize. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to continue to monitor activity very closely. We'll have many decisions to make for quickly approaching actions leading up to the budget adoption, which includes the board briefing in May, our publication of the notice of public meeting, which includes the truth and taxation calculations. We'll call and set the date for the hearing on June 20th, and then the last day of the legislative session is May 29th. Then in June, we'll have the budget and tax rate hearing. We'll adopt the 23-24 budget, and we'll produce that final budget amendment for the current year. And that is what I have this evening.
And again, as we get information, I'll continue to provide you that through our week in review and obviously leading up to the next board meeting. So, thank you, Dina. All right, next at our meeting, we'll move into our superintendent's report. Dr. Warford, do you want to add anything on the curriculum report? It's for a report only.
So just like last meeting, we shared with you the work that the task forces were doing, and so we're excited to put into the report the actual final documents, the literacy in that task forces and the recommendations from that task force. And we're very proud of it.
Okay, financial report, Dina? Oh, I'm sorry. Molly, I'm so sorry.
So I just had some questions. I feel like, and I also respect
Right, within the
I-
report,
I don't
yes.
believe that we're gonna talk about, but it's listed in the report. And so, and it's Amplify Language Arts Program or something like that. It's a, very strong in, foundations and phonics, and that is great. And I really believe that if everything is very consistent, this is coming down from PEA. So if across the state, it's more, we see more consistency in the way the kids are being taught in the phonics program, the foundations program, there could be a change. We could see improvement. I did see some things that kind of concerned me in the literature part, and I'm wondering, is there any flexibility? If we determine that we're gonna purchase this program, or this will be our curriculum, is there any flexibility? Because it is very set, scripted, it's very, this is what we do, this is what we read, and everything seems to come together. Is there any flexibility in what children will read, or what the read alouds? Can we, because I feel like we have such talent in our team of literacy experts, that if there's something that instructionally doesn't align with our core values and what we have said, problem solving, critical thinking, all of this, if we notice that that's not included, can we substitute something in that part of the program?
Sure, so the goal is definitely curriculum implementation fidelity, so that, we're doing the best that we can with it, but it's local control. And so, one of the big things, one of the parts of the initiative we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that teachers have input throughout the process and letting us know where they see opportunities for enhancements, changes, so future implementations will always be moving to provide. The first year, we might not know where those opportunities are until we do it, but definitely moving into year 2 and 3, they're gonna be constantly going to give us feedback so that we can definitely make the changes.
And so Molly, it sounds like you're concerned about that the structure will take away from, that it's going to be limiting. It'll be limiting, and, okay. I just want to be clear that I understand, because it is structured, but it's foundation,
Well, and I think I'm more concerned about the fact that all of the time that children are being read to through a complex text and being, that's where those conversations take place, where problem solving, critical thinking. It's more of a directed question and answer by the teacher rather than, and it's all, we're using classical text. There's been so many books written since the time that the classics were written that are, I would hate not to see opportunities for those to be still that kids relate to as well. And that's what I'm hoping.
To be incorporated.
Set of views there, and then for the kids reading too, because there were also a lot of interruptions in their reading that I noticed. Just one example of a lesson that I looked at, and then some practices of whole group practices that I just make sure it's in line with our social emotional learning and everything that we are doing in this district.
And I can tell you, like, when I was a first year teacher, or, just starting, get so caught up in trying to follow the scripting that you do miss learning opportunities, you miss those conversations that start, with the kids of opening that up. So, leaving room for that. I agree with Molly completely.
And one of our big three instructional strategies is academic conversations. And so one of the things we're going to be teaching our teachers is how to weave that into even the program. Because it might not stay in the program, we're going to do this, but engaging students, we need to make sure they're always engaged. So even when they start zoning out a little bit, that's the best way to re-engage. So absolutely. It's not about being the robot. It's about making sure that kids are engaged and learning.
Not checking the box.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your input. Moving on, we'll talk about the financial report. Knowing, go ahead.
Melanie
Dean.
Reyes will be here to discuss the delinquent tax report.
See how our collections are going, that'll be good. Administrative Services and Human Resources, Panay?
Most of it's human resources, I was working, it is all about how we're winding down with our job fairs and thinking of order. Just trying to fill all of our spots, with what's open now, what we have for next year, we're around 90, but we're just getting started. So usually when we get through the summer, June, July, it's around 50, and just continues to go down. But, just recruiting, retaining, checking those people that are resigning, why, having one-on-one conversations with those people, and just improving the future that we have with the resources that we can use as good classroom management.
Does our retention look better for this year than it was last year?
I think so. We are starting to see some resignations trickle in. What's different this year is we're opening schools and we're having new students and we're having new teachers, and that's not always popular. So people are considering other opportunities. I haven't seen a lot of resignations from it. I've just heard the conversations. I don't want to go to that school. If I have to go to that school, then I'll go to another district. So we've given them the opportunity to, how would I say, take control of your destiny first. And we told these people 6 weeks ago, I call it the transfer portal. If you're in there, you know it, look at all the openings we have, contact the principal, start making connections. We're down to 7. So we've come a long way. 2 of us have our special ed, so we have special ed openings everywhere. So we'll be able to place them, but it's, do they want to go, what the openings are.
We need to get them some NIL money.
You got the theme right off the bat, didn't you?
I know you always have a deadline. What's the deadline for?
So we're gonna start placing on Monday. We've called all 7, we've had conversations with them on what their thoughts, what their still issues, on where they wanna go. They'll say campus will go, so, that's not an option right now. Well, so-and-so says they're gonna resign, but they haven't yet. So if we do place somebody, let's say I have an elementary teacher that wants to go to Blue Bonnet, but my openings at Neal, so I place them in Neal, they still have the opportunity to transfer through the middle of June. So if that person does finally resign before June 14th, they can do a transfer to the campus of their choice. The last day to resign is July 3rd.
However, you still have, control of the principal. That's right, they're not, I mean, they're still interviewing with that campus and whoever leader.
That's correct. The principal has the ultimate choice.
Yeah, y'all are making the
Teacher
decisions here, and people.
Right.
We've called the principals and had openings. We have 5 certified teachers, we have openings. But I might be Blue Mont, let's say I'm Camino Real, it's too far out, I don't want to go there for 5 teachers. And so we're trying to get this resolved so that everybody can start hiring externally, because I have to hire homes for these 7 people. They don't have contracts, they're good employees, they don't have any, bad marks on the file, but, so I have to place those 7, that's what we're doing it on Monday. We're gonna start having, we're trying to be as polite and as kind as we can, but come Monday, it's more direct. This is where you're gonna go. If your position at Blue Rock comes over to be or transfer, so that if you're transferred, we have some principals moving people around on campuses so they can get people where they want them. A lot of transfers can be, a lot of people have been, but that's my report is mostly about recruiting, retaining, interviewing, job fairs.
And I have heard both sides, I've heard teachers excited to go to a new school, and I've heard some other parents to go to a new school.
Yeah.
Knowing that, is everything going to be in place and everything, it's changed.
It's changing hard.
Change is right, yeah.
For student transfers, we have over 1,200 this year. And it's a beast. And so, we're trying to make sure that our schools are level, and the kids, that's all we do boundaries, so they will be lopsided. So we sent out the level 2 denial letters today. Like, we're very 8, 19 coming in, Bastrop, they interviewed Bastrop first, and they interviewed other people, but we did shine. It was excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, Bastrop had more classes covered, or more teachers, their need was covered, and just, they went down and asked different questions, and we were first to at the top to respond, but I think we looked like we were at the top. Very good.
All right, Dina's back up again. Operations report, yeah, food service.
Okay, so on February 1st, we did solicit proposals for food service management services. I wanted to mention that we actually started this process in the beginning of December, but we have to get approval from TDA before we can put the RFP out on the street. So there was 2 months back and forth with negotiations with TDA. Finally, on February 1st, we were able to release that. We received responses from 4 vendors, Aramark, Chartwell's, Southwest Food Excellence, SFE, and Sahar. I don't know how to pronounce that. TAHER. So on March 23rd, evaluation team was selected, and then we have a TDA prescribed scoring rubric that has to be used. So we all scored. We got that together on the 31st, and we, conversed about, who we thought was the best, and used the rubric as a guide, and then we made our selection. From there, we have to submit all of the vendors to TDA, and that happened this week. And then we'll get a response back from them, we move forward with our number 1 candidate. They'll respond, and then we'll be able to take this to the board in June.
And so you all know, it's premature to say who we recommended or anything, because we still are under the guidance of the Texas Department of Agriculture, TDA. So we have to wait till we hear back from them, and then, of course, as soon as we receive that, we'll get that in front of you all for your final, consideration. So, but we just wanted you to know where we were. These are long processes, No, this is just when we have to renew, or the TDA, Texas Department of Agriculture, makes us go back out to bid.
So the last time we did this was 2021.
Yeah. Mhm.
But,
Right.
we wanted to see what our other options were, so that's why we decided to go back out.
All right, police report. I know he's sitting back here in the back row. I don't know, any? So he has a report in there as well about things going on there. Communications, or any questions about police? No? Okay. Communications report, Dr. Lee, Christie?
We will have 2 presentations this month. Our team from Stantec will come and give you a bond update. The interesting thing about this update will be that we have a lot of projects that are currently in the design phase. So what happens is that we do design, we review, we get feedback from principals, we go back to the architect's phase, rework it, and when we feel like it's finally settled, then it goes to the construction team, and then it goes out for bid, and depending on what comes back, we may have to go back to the design and say, okay, we need to make an adjustment here, or these dollars have come in higher than we expected. So, what you'll see, there will be updates on the projects that are currently under construction, but then there'll be some design updates, and we'll begin to kind of see what we're looking at for the intermediate schools, the middle schools, and the elementary schools, those secure vestibules. But we're not at the stage of saying that all of this is absolutely what we're doing, because we now have to go through the bid process. So, after Stantec does their presentation, we'll introduce you to the project managers who are working at our new schools, at Bastrop High School, and at MENA. So from American Constructors, we wanted you to put a face with the leaders of those projects. And then we will hear from Rocky, who's our demographer with Zonda Education, and he'll be here to give you the 2023 spring update on enrollment. So we met with him earlier this week, and he will be here to share with us some news about enrollment.
Do you think there's gonna be a school out at the Tesla?
Well, we had heard that rumor as well,
Yeah.
right? That's right. So,
Mhm.
I think
Yes, there is. Yeah, yeah. So, any other questions, comments? All right, then we have our consent agenda. As you know, you vote on that in one vote. Then we'll move on to our action items. We'll consider approval of operations transition plan. As the board and cabinet and administrators have been in many conversations about our maintenance operations and grounds programming, what we'd like to do this evening is present our transition plan so that you all have the information necessary to consider bringing the operations back in-house. But we want to start with the transition plan, get your feedback on it, and then Tuesday we would present, if it's the board's will, to leave it on the agenda to discuss moving on and terminating our current contract and bringing it in-house. So we've asked Dina to do this presentation for us. It's her department, so
When does the current contract end?
August 5th. August 5th, and we have a 65-day notice. Is it 65 or 90? Anyway, we have a
60.
notice requirement, so we wanted to get this in front of you, so.
So very excited to bring this transition plan to you for bringing our operations in-house. This will include facilities and system maintenance, custodial, and grounds, and I'll cover each of these three areas at a very high level. So I wanted to start our facilities management plan with a mission statement. So it's to ensure a safe and sanitary environment for students and staff that fosters learning and supports the educational mission of the district while protecting the district's investments in its assets. Okay, so let's take a look at the lay of the land in the district to get a better idea of the magnitude of what all we need to, needs to be managed and maintained. So we have almost 2 million square feet to clean and maintain across 450 square miles district-wide. We're managing 1,700 HVAC aging units, and we've been replacing anywhere between 50 and 70 units annually, ranging from 5-ton to 10 to 20-ton units. We do have a great partner with Oasis, and we've been really trying to get ahead of that so that we have units on hand so we're able to respond very quickly. We're currently employing almost 1,500 employees. This plan will bring that to an additional 110. And we have 12,547 students to keep safe and comfortable so that they're able to focus on learning. So this is a snapshot of all of our campuses in the year they were built. So we have buildings ranging from 70 years old to our youngest building at 14 years old. The average age of the building, of all of our buildings in aggregate, is 34 years. So almost, a lot of our buildings are fully depreciated, which means what? A lot of maintenance, right? So we have a lot of work ahead of us. So let's talk about some startup expenses. Okay, so we have White Fleet on order, which includes a total of 29 vehicles at a cost of $1.3 million. Grounds equipment came in at $163,000, custodial at $240,000, and then we've purchased a year's supply of cleaning products through utilization of a grant at $425,000. So we have already purchased and received those products, so very exciting. Okay. So moving on to each individual areas, we'll start with maintenance. For staffing, we used a formula recommended by the Association of Physical Plant Administration where applicable. So for maintenance, this includes 1 FTE per 9,355 square feet. And that with 2 million square feet, that brings us to 21 employees. That includes a manager and a lead. Then the monthly payroll cost is estimated at $93,336 and will cover all the specialized areas, including like HVAC, plumbing, refrigeration, and then all the general maintenance positions as well. So primary responsibilities for this area include maintenance, physical plant operations, and maintenance of buildings and equipment, including some kitchen. We'll process work orders through a system called Brightly. This was formerly called School Dude. You may be familiar with it. It's pretty much industry standard. We'll sustain growth with our energy conservation programs, sustain and grow, I should say, with our energy conservation, as well as manage compliance and regulatory requirements. So for custodial, we used, again, a recommended formula from the same association, and that's a 1 FTE per 26,000 square feet. So standard protocols for districts are typically 28,000 to 30,000 per FTE, so we'll have a little bit more coverage around the district. Using this formula, we'll need about 76 employees, including 2 custodial managers, at a monthly payroll of almost $270,000. They'll be responsible for cleaning and maintaining all 2 million square feet across the district, and they'll have very specific cleaning tasks assigned to each of these areas that you see on the screen. Okay, for grounds crews, we're looking at 13 employees, including a manager and a lead, and a monthly payroll budget of about $42,000. They'll maintain grass, all athletic areas, including infields, bleachers, turf, landscaping, and all the outdoor spaces with a focus on safety and aesthetics. Then other operating expenses that will be included, which includes our work order system, and that comes in at about $25,000 annually. Of course, uniforms, phones, some things associated with vehicles, which include insurance, telematics, oil changes, things like that. Compliance testing, which we're currently paying for anyway. And then any additional contracted services for work beyond what we can do in-house. And again, we're already paying for those services, anything over $5,000 outside of the SSC contract. And then a possible HR and finance FTE to handle the extra 110 positions. Okay, so you may be asking yourself, how are we going to afford all of this? So we for startup expenses, we have assigned fund balance of $3 million last year, and then of course we received that grant of $425,000, giving us a total of $3.4 million. The grant covered the full year worth of cleaning products, again, a full year, so that we don't have to spend money on cleaning products because we already have those and they're being stored right now. So our total startup cost is approximately $2.2 million, which leaves about $1.3 million in fund balance, so should anything unforeseen occur throughout the year. So we're really happy with that, in that we have a little extra safety net. Okay, moving into monthly recurring costs that have been annualized on the slide. We're currently spending close to $7 million in our existing contract, so we're planning to move that money over to cover this program. We did add an inflation factor of 5%, so our annual budget comes out to about $7.3 million. After covering payroll, we'll have about $150,000 left per month to cover all of the other expenses across the 3 disciplines. So in the SSC contract, the non-payroll budget is $70,000. So we feel this is more than sufficient to cover our monthly expenses, and then we can also do sub-deferred maintenance, which is greatly needed. Okay. So looking at the timeline. So we seek board approval on Tuesday, and then we'll turn around with written notice that week. We closed the RFPs for grounds and custodial equipment, so we'll be ordering those very soon. In May, we'll take delivery of the vehicles, we'll order uniforms, and we'll begin that HR planning. In June, we'll work through setting up our work order system, and then in July, we'll begin that pre-employment activity, and then officially transition in August. Our contract does end August 5th. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
From SFE?
That's what we're hoping.
Is there any worry about this 3 months difference when we notify them before the contract ends, about them keeping up their job over the next 3 months?
That is a concern. But we'll be monitoring that very closely.
And, you know, we have a contract, so we'll continue to work with them. And having been through a transition before between companies, it usually goes rather smoothly. And so, again, we will be monitoring it, though, and making sure that we're on top of it. And to add to Dina's response to Kelly about, we believe that our employees are going to be very pleased to be coming back, working under the district's banner. We are doing a more generous, as she talked about, like in the housekeeping, a more generous staffing model where we'll have more housekeeping and support, which I think will make their workload better, which we hope will result in higher quality cleaning. So we believe that they're going to be very excited. And as you all know, these are our community members. And to work for our district and get back with us and receive our benefits, I think that they're going to be very excited.
Just quickly about the benefits, so they will be under PRS as well?
They'll be under our insurance program, TRS Active Care.
And my assumptions assume that every single position is filled and that every single employee takes benefits. So it's, you know, it's conservative.
We've covered the costs, yes.
Yeah.
When we switched previously, one of the issues at the time was paid time off and the vacation. Are we gonna lose anything? Are we able to recover any time in a bank for vacation and stuff like that, so that they don't lose?
Our vacation, our time off is far more generous than theirs. If you may not be fully aware, but they'll furlough a good amount of the employees during the summer and just have core teams, and our plan is to employ them throughout the contract, throughout the year. And so I have little doubt that our benefits will exceed and the time off will exceed what they're currently getting.
I'm not even sure they get paid leave right now. I
So-
don't think they do.
We believe that we do.
They don't have health care. They're not offered health care at all. Mm-mm.
Excellent. Long time coming.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, we are excited, and we believe they will be, too.
Is it the same amount? I know you said everyone offered a job, but is it the same amount of people? I saw your numbers up there, or do we even know how many people are there at certain?
So we're actually staffing more generously than what we currently have right now. And I can tell you that we are forever, there's so many vacancies. We're forever chasing vacancies. So, and a lot of that could be by design. They do, make out when there's vacant positions.
And then my only other question was,
This may have been covered before, but what brought this change on? I mean, I agree with it completely. I kind of don't think we ever should have moved out or outsourced it, but what made you decide to bring it back in?
I think that when you get to the end of the contract, you reevaluate everything, and we reevaluate where we've been with our current provider and what we believe we can provide. We did earmark, designated that fund balance in advance to make sure that we had the option so that we'd have the funding, even though we weren't positive that would be the ultimate call, because obviously that's y'all's vote. But we believe it's the best interest of the school district. We've planned for it. The contract ends naturally, so we think this is a better option for the district moving forward.
It allows us more control to, to push the resources where we feel the district needs them. And, we had an opportunity with funding. The White Fleet is the biggest expense in the startup costs, and then we had that nice increase to fund balance, so we were able to earmark that and take advantage of that opportunity to get that White Fleet, and the grounds equipment. So originally, we were thinking about outsourcing grounds, just using like maybe 4 different outfits across the district, but then we were able to even afford the grounds equipment. So we're going to take that in too, which is great.
That was my question, is cost.
So that's a really good question. I feel like there will be operational savings because we have double the monthly budget for non-payroll baked in right now. And this budget is the budget that we would have spent otherwise with SSC next year. But because we have double the non-payroll, it does give us an opportunity to do deferred maintenance, but I still think we'll have operational savings.
And what I would say to that is, I don't want to recommend this as a cost savings, because we have so much need, average building, across the district, 34 years, we know what our buildings are like. The bond is certainly helping, but there's still so much more to do. And so what I really want to do is make the recommendation on, it's the best way to move our district forward faster and better than we're going to save money. Because any savings that come from this, we need to pour right back into our facilities. And really, primarily, preventative maintenance. That's where we really need to get busy.
And I don't know, I'm sure you all have worked at it, but I don't know what, they've been paid, and whether they're being paid as fairly as they should be.
So we're offering a more generous pay than what they're currently getting. Yeah. It's not humongous, but it's slightly better.
And there'll be adjustments. It's market-driven. You're bringing in a lot of trades and stuff, so we're going to have to reevaluate that. Panay's department will be doing that for us. Again, we're not trying to overpromise at this point. We just want to get it moving, so.
Also, what we heard out there, Kay, is if you're a first year, 5-year, 10-year, I'll make up a number, you make $20 an hour. So our pay structure, the longer you're with us, you get an increase there. So
That was one of the complaints that I brought up, I think, last meeting about, another company that we work with, is that they keep increasing the pay for new people, trying to get new employees, but then the guy who's been there 15 years, he's getting paid a quarter different, 25 cents different.
we'll look at the stuff, we'll look at all the data and detail, to know where to bring in and how to.
Please don't start one in for our employees.
We won't.
That includes retirement,
And so they'll be also part of the 2 free insurance programs that we offer.
That's
So
right.
they will have that option. It's not for dental and vision, but it's your general medical. We have 2 different plans that the district offers.
Now, some of them may, have passed. So they'll just go.
Come back out.
That's true. If they didn't cash it in, but they'll come right back into the system, so. All right. Thank you, Dina. Well done. All right, action item B, Panay, consider approval of a TASB policy DNA.
We're just updating our policy to match our practices. And so some of the things, it's really more along the lines of teachers that are eligible. We changed some things with our UI when we do that. And that's all. So we're just making sure that our policy matches what our practices are. That's having
Any questions? All right, Dr. Lee, Christie?
So on Tuesday, you'll hear just a short presentation from our 2 new principals. Christy Keichler will be here to share with you their decision on, and their recommendation to you all on mascot and school colors for Colony Oaks. And then Dr. Lozano will do the same thing for Camino Real. So the process that they went through, first of all, I shared with them all of the nominations that had come forward when we did school naming nominations. Some people also recommended school mascots, so I shared that with all of them. They also created their own survey, and using the student list that we know are going to be assigned to those schools next year, they sent out a family survey and asked them what they thought. So there were call for nominations in that way for both mascots and school colors. And then they took that list and they sort of culled it down to a smaller list and put together a campus team based upon teachers who've been hired so far. And they vetted it, and they selected 3 of that, of all of those nominations, and then sent it back out to the families to select, to vote on the one that they really wanted. So what they're going to be bringing to you on Tuesday, Colony Oaks will.
Don't spell it. Don't spill the beans. Let the surprise be Tuesday.
Okay.
Because that'd be sad. Don't you think the new schools, the principals, if you tell them and...
Would we say no?
Oh, I didn't think of that. You guys do have, so.
Always time on this board.
This could be your chance. This could be your
I just thought it'd be fun to surprise them. Feel free, if that's the right thing to do. It's quite a process. I tell you, the names, there was many, many names. I was like, don't spill the beans. All right, so that concludes our action items for this month's board meeting. And then, Mr. Moore, we do have, this is the month where we report the board member continuing education hours, so he'll share those with the public. And
That's
then-
the only thing that is actually reported out of it.
Correct. And so, and Noli has all that, all the hours accredited, as you know. So then we'll move into closed session where we'll consider term and probationary contracts for teachers. And then we'll come out of there, vote, and that'll adjourn our meeting. Are there any things else you want to have us consider or that you'd like to see?
Dr. Lee's gonna dress up as one of the mascots, right?
That's funny.
We know who we're doing. Well, thank you all for all this work, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to cover this material in agenda review, because it is a lot to think about and to really get a handle on it so that, feel comfortable when we're in an actual meeting to, this is an actual meeting, but when we're in our public meeting, to be able to speak coherently about what we have to say about the things that are being proposed, and then also to just make sure we're all marching on the same side of the road. So thank you for this. It's been very, very informative. Is there any other business to be attended to? If there's any objection to adjourning this meeting, if not, the meeting is adjourned.
He just wants to...
I had to do it. Just had.